Good morning. My biggest fear was that there would be empty seats and the few that were here would be asleep when I occasionally glanced for my remarks. But it's nice to see everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the House of Unconditional Love. That's what I think about here. Because it's true. It's true. And there's not many places you can go, anywhere, where you walk in and you get that from just walking in the door. So I'm grateful for this space. This is my favorite place on campus, as one may guess with that introduction. I love to sit in front of the waterfall for a few minutes on really hot days to gather my composure and contemplate grabbing chocolates from the candy bowl, as Jan Register knows so clearly. I am the horticulturist that maintains the meditation garden, and I always venture inside to say hello to my friends in the office. It is here where I became friends with all the spiritual gurus. I remember feeling really blessed when Father Jerry became my friend. I've never had a friend that was a priest, so it was remarkable to me. Then I met Father Peter and have that same feeling of unconditional love. I actually hug on Father Peter because he reminds me of a human teddy bear. I never thought that I would actually have Catholic priests as my friends. Elon has given me that privilege. I always enjoy my conversations with Shane, Betsy, Joel, T, Jan, and Sandra, and the rest of the Newman Lumen staff. You see, I do not see any of these spiritual beings as different. They simply represent love and acceptance. And of course, they serve the same God. So all is well in my world. As a child growing up in Greenville, South Carolina, I quit going to church in the 5th grade. My Sunday school teacher would pound on the podium with her biblical message to 2 5th graders, me and David Galitzin. As you may guess, this made my stomach hurt, and my child self determined that something was wrong with this behavior. That was the end of my organized religious experience for the most part. I am not a religious person. I am more spiritual, I suppose. And if I had to explain my belief system, I would sound rather ignorant. Me? I simply believe in a power greater than myself that I call God. I was asked last semester to speak at Newman Lumen, and I thought about it for a long time and eventually declined. You see, I'm not a public speaker and actually received an F in the 7th grade for refusing to participate in my oral book report. However, Jan Fuller approached me again and I broke down and accepted. It is actually an honor to be asked to speak, and my feeling was that it would be okay and that I would live through it, and maybe, just maybe, someone could relate to my story and feel validated themselves. So the topic of change today brings me to times in my life where major change took place and resulted in significant consequences. It being September, I see all of our young students here on campus, and some are away from home for the first time. And it reminds me of my days back at Winthrop College in 1978. I was there as a first-year student and so excited to be at college. Actually, my very first weekend there, I was drinking wine and smoking pot, and it set me out on a path that would lead me into a life of drugs and alcohol for many years. My first weekend away. This is where I can look back and see where my journey changed. I got off my path. Even though I did finally graduate, remarkably, I did not engage in learning to be my best self. I discovered that getting high with my friends, I love that. During the day, we would sit around and smoke pot and listen to music. I learned a lot about music. Classical music, jazz, even country. It was nice. It was a nice thing to learn about. For whatever reason, I remember there was no attendance policy for many of my classes. So, as I said, I spent many a day listening to music and getting high with my friends. Or I would go to class high. I would go stoned, pretty stoned. I quickly learned that drinking and drugging took away all the fear and anxiety that seemed to live in my head. As many of us, I grew up in dysfunction, and being fearful and anxious was normal. My father died when I was 4, and my mother was left to raise 3 children on her own. And as an adult, I understand how devastating that must have been. So fear and anxiety ruled her life as well as my own. I discovered in college that the drugs and alcohol took the edge off. I somehow managed to get my schoolwork completed, but I was usually under the influence of mind-altering substances most of the time. As we all know, that these college years are a time of discovery in many areas of our lives. And for me, I learned the friends I gravitated to were the LGBTQ plus students. So yes, I found my people. As you may guess, there were no GLCs on college campuses back in the late 70s and early 80s. And for my friends of color, there were no CREED offices either. Many of us were in emotional pain for being who we were. You see, many in our society see LGBTQ plus people as somehow less than or not okay. That is a general statement, of course, but as we all know, that this community is in a constant civil rights and equal rights struggle, just as our friends of color are. Racism and all the other isms are sometimes blatant, but mostly subtle, and certainly ingrained in our society. So that being said, many of us turn to drugs and alcohol to deal with the emotions discrimination triggers, especially when you're young and feel all of the disapproval for just being yourself. I eventually became clean and sober at the age of 30. I embraced the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Positive change came quickly after I went into recovery. I was one of 14 horticulture students chosen to attend a 2-year gardening program at Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania. I was in the professional gardener training program. Longwood is an old estate garden, now it's a public garden, former home of Pierre DuPont. Old blue blood money. The best of the best, major excess. So as life goes, half of the students were gay and several other students were in recovery or both. And there's 14 of us. Imagine that. I was embraced. After graduation in 1994, I moved to New York City to work at the New York Botanical Garden. There I lived in diversity and thrived. Life was good, and I was embraced once again. The next big change in my life occurred when I moved back to the South due to family illness back in 2000. Oddly, I had never experienced homophobia and sexism until I returned to North Carolina. My first blatant experience with it was actually here at Elon. When I first came 8 years ago, I was not sure how to respond to it, so I ignored it. I ignored hurtful and hateful comments. This was many years ago, and I retreated into myself and did not interact with people so much. Time has changed my experience here. I made peace with those that had been unkind, and I moved on. AA taught me to forgive myself and to forgive others. Today, I will no longer tolerate such behavior. I found my voice to stand up for myself and stand up for others. I know my way to HR and know, too, that just being myself will not get me fired here at Elon. Imagine that. My job today allows me plenty of opportunity to have meaningful conversations with our students. We talk about whatever. We talk about whatever we talk about. Whatever can be drugs and alcohol abuse or not. It's mostly just about how our days are going, or what's your favorite class, or, what's your favorite thing to do when you're not studying. I have fun conversations because lunchtime is my social experience, because when I go home, I'm so tired. It's me and the dog, which is true. So I really enjoy my lunchtime and the conversations I have with our young folks and staff that I meet along the way. I just know that I am here with a listening ear and grateful to have survived my youth. Glory be to God. Thank you for coming.